Hi, everybody. This is day 978. 978 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And he didn't just vanish, a lot happened. We're putting together a new timeline because of um, the notary public. He gave us a call a few days ago. Matter of fact, I need to call him. We've been so busy, just to let him know to thank him very, very much for the information. Um, that was absolutely game changing because we know that the CID file that was put together, and we were told now we need an investigator, right? We need a true inspector. We need an inspector general to inspect the investigators. Um, but we've been made the investigator, which is something we're looking into because there's been a tampering of witnesses. There's been impeding the investigator. There's been all kinds of asymmetric warfare tactics, military operations, the weaponization of the DOD and the DOJ and the FBI, and on and on. In the case of trying to find our son, Richard Halliday. And so we need the Inspector General, Mr. Horowitz, to absolutely inspect the investigation of our son. What all happened? Why can't they find him? He is an active duty Army soldier from a secure military installation. It's supposed to be secure. There's supposed to be cameras everywhere. And he went missing from his barracks, which is also supposed to be secure. And this is after murders of soldiers. And it is interesting that in Richard's case, it always seems, well, I'm gonna look into it before I say anything further. I'm gonna confirm it. I'm gonna look into it. There's new questions in the investigation of our son because of what has just happened with the notary public. So this investigation was taking place behind the scenes because we believe it was because of a bad divorce. It was about, I don't know, getting even. I don't know. I don't know what Leilani Hart was trying to do with her husband, James Hart. I don't know why this divorce has been so messy. And why would you make false allegations? Because he said that, he had been cleared. When I talked to him a year ago, he said CID had called him and he had been cleared. And I said, when did they call you? And he said, like a week ago. So that would be, a year and a week ago. And, but those kind of false allegations that are in this CID file of all kinds of child abuse and even incest, and this is all this stuff that we're hearing, and we need to confirm this because we someone needs to be judge over it, right? Someone needs to work this out because from what we heard, they were using the files that were leaked, Richard's being included, to create this CID complaint. And they submitted it. This is we're brainstorming here. And if you know something about this, please contact us 941-677-0060. And that includes Texas Heart, Dallas Heart, right? So that they were using Richard's file to fortify this complaint to the CID. And of course, Tavita Nusa, where was he when Richard went missing? But also, what role did he play in making sure, as a special agent in the CID right there at Fort Bliss, what role did he play to help fortify this complaint with all of the information from all these files, including Richard's file, to put into the CID to get it accepted, get the allegations accepted, get the file accepted, the case accepted, and then also then forwarded to the FBI to get it accepted by the FBI, because we know that the CID and the FBI both accepted this case because we have the case numbers. We have the CID number, we have the FBI number. Now, who else has their CID number, FBI number? You know, those are not numbers that are out and public and are received by even the person that makes a complaint, or the allegations or the case, or, you know. So that is also a huge question. Did Tavita Nusa leak those numbers also to Leilani Hart, because we know she had them? So, and then to top this all off, we know the date, because those allegations, that complaint, that file was notarized on the 22nd of July, 2020, which is the day before Richard went missing. That's huge, because that means that the CID, the FBI, the DOD, they absolutely knew about this. They absolutely knew. And yet, they kept that from us. Yet, they made us the investigators, and numerous times, and I have live stream after live stream after live stream proving, witnessing what I'm saying is true, that they told us to get leads, bring them leads, and that they essentially made us the investigators of Find Richard Halliday, when all along they had all of this information. They didn't need to make us the investigators, right? They didn't need to do that. And yet they allowed this. They didn't share the information. We didn't even know that we should have a personal relationship, or like at least first name basis with the prosecutor, that the prosecutor should at least contact us, who was handling for the judge the information to get all these subpoenas and warrants. So Jaime Esparza, he should have absolutely contacted us, because it's like a dual jurisdiction. And so they had this information, and they've violated our rights. They've put us in harm's way. They've used asymmetric warfare tactics against us. They've used military operations against us. And then when I say, look, this is coming down from General McConville. This is coming through Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. These are the worst type of criminals. And they are, because they go to charm school. They're all charmed. They act like they are on your side. They act like they're on the service member side, okay? But they're not. And nobody can understand it unless they fully understand what's going on and what we have been put through. To be put in harm's way, to be, and I believe these bullies, because I traced them. Okay, so we traced them to the addresses, and I believe these were, for the most part, government operations. Absolutely civil government operations, I should say clearly, state operations against us to bully us, to intimidate us, to threaten us. And so when I say these are the worst type of enemies, I don't say that lightly. These are the worst type of criminals. I don't say that lightly. Betrayal is like the worst type of crime, right? When you get stabbed in the back, when you by someone that you think you trust, that's a terrible crime. So this is what has happened. You have to remember, my husband is a 30-year veteran. 30 years in the Army. They have combed through his record. They have combed through my record. They have, before they even brought Richard back on the rolls, because don't forget, they threw him off the rolls in the middle of all the turmoil from Vanessa Guillen's case, Enrique Roman Martinez's case, Caleb Smithers' case, and Austin Hawk's case, and Gregory Morales' case, and many, many more. Many more. And they threw us out. And when they brought us back in, they right away intimidated us. Or tried to anyway. They didn't, but they tried to. And the CID handled himself terribly, considering that they had all this information. Not only did they have a 22nd of July 2020 notarized, that's the day before Richard ever went missing, complaint of very serious charges, but they knew that there were leaked files, and one of them being Richard's. And they knew that, and I believe that through all of the time after Richard went missing and that, they did take away Tavita Nusa's badge. Now, we haven't gotten a date on that. That would be very interesting. But CID and FBI, and even at that November 9th, 2020, fake, no op board, no uniform, no team leader, task force find Richard Halliday, which was just, it was just a theater. It was just a staged event, right? To placate us, to make us think that they were doing something. But without an op board, nothing gets done. And they spent more time. We told them about the leak. That was really important. But, they spent too much time on this underage drinking, that they take underage drinking seriously. And I have many live streams that will back me up on what I'm saying. I was so sick and tired of them talking about that they take underage drinking seriously. I mean, it was such an insult. For one, who cares? Find Richard. Find him, find him, and then, we could figure out the rest. Because these young people are made targets for the drug industry, the alcohol industry, the sex industry, the war industry, and, the PTSD industry, the mental health industry. And believe it, it's true. It's big, big money. Any kind of health issues, big money. And they give them their $25,000 or $50,000 or $40,000 enlistment bonus, and and they covet it. They covet it, and that's why the barracks become marketplaces for illegal drugs. That's why Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz said we, meaning Major General Clem Coward, I'm sure, because those two are like connected at the hip, brought in the girls during the COVID. That's why, I mean, it's all like, oh, fun and games, but at the end of the day, follow the money. And all of this looking the other way, all of this making excuses, okay? Excuses. Oh, that's just the way. Oh, it's been going on that way for a long time. Oh, you know how it is. No, we're talking about dead, missing, rotting, bludgeoned, raped, overdosed, injured by antifreeze, and on and on and on and on. Soldiers, and groomed. Did I say groomed? Absolutely, sexually groomed. And so today, because the investigation, because our rights have been so broken, so we've been taken so advantage of, because at the very beginning of this, when they finally did take us back, when they put Richard back on the rolls, and the CID said that they would help us, and we weren't bitter. We weren't bitter that they threw us out. Okay? We were grateful that they took us back. Even though it was their duty. Even though that was the right thing. But we were being very nice because we wanted a good relationship with the CID, with the command, to help us find our son. But that wasn't reciprocated, y'all. I remember one of the first things I ever said to the PAO, which is the public affairs officer, the mouthpiece for the general. And that was, we want a win-win, you know. We know what's happening in the military. We know what's happening. And we want a win-win. We want a win for the Army. We want the Army to look good during this. And we want to find our son. But we were betrayed. And they weren't interested in a win-win. And their way of win-win is not the right way of win-win. Because it's their way is to throw the soldiers under the bus. And if they're dead and trampled on, to be dead and trampled on again. And if their family has to be trampled on along with them, that's fine. Matter of fact, we'll organize it. We'll put an op-ord. I'd like to know how many operational orders were put together to allow the harassment, the asymmetric warfare tactics, I'm sure it's top secret, and military operations against us. And I can name lots of them. And if you've been watching these live streams for 940 days, you would absolutely know what I'm talking about. And I've done, oh geez, how many of these have I done? And I thought today, how can we get the Inspector General to inspect this investigation? Because it's needed. And I think that the political time is the best that it has been since the beginning of this, because the politics were so insane, we couldn't get help. We could not get help. Like I talked about yesterday, it was pollution galore, crimes galore. And for these very people that are so against pollution, they sure do a lot of polluting. And we couldn't get help. And so now we're asking, and let me see if I can put it up. Let's see, make it smaller. Oh, see if I can make it. See if I can just go down. Yeah, right here. So we're asking for 1,000 letters for the 1,000 days. We're coming up to 1,000 days. We'd like 1,000 letters sent to Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General in the Department of Justice, to ask him to inspect the investigation of Find Richard Halliday, okay, at Fort Bliss. And we think this is really, really important. And so if you can take this image, you can find it everywhere. I put it up on Twitter. I put it up here on Telegram, of course, on Facebook. And if you can take this and pass it around to people that would really write a letter, it doesn't have to be a long letter. It just has to say, Mr. Michael Horowitz, Inspector General Michael Horowitz, we request that you inspect the investigation of Find Richard Halliday. We're coming up on 1,000 days, and that is unacceptable. We need you to step in. Thank you very much. And you can sign your name. It's as simple as that. And we need 1,000 of those. So if you can pass them out to your church, pass them out to your clubs, pass them out to your friends and your family members, pass them out to your unit members. This is for service members. I want to stress that, because the agencies, the DOD, the DOJ, the FBI, they did not have our service members' backs. They didn't have it, and they still. Did you know that I just found out today by reading a little article that even in Vanessa Guillen's case, it's not right, y'all, because with the new Vanessa Guillen bill, the leadership, the commands, they are immune to investigations for sexual allegations. And I think that is the sexual harassment allegations and rape allegations, that they're immune. They don't have, they're the exception. Why? I don't understand. We're supposed to have equal justice in this country. And if anything, our leadership should be held to a higher standard, not to a lower standard. Not to a lower standard. And when you're a leader and you have so many depending on what you do and how you do it and in your life, then and you mess up, you hurt many more people. So I don't understand. Even I noticed that with the Phil Grade Article 15, if you are a higher ranking, you're kind of immune from all of that. Why? Is that why we have such criminal leadership right now? Because they never get punished? They're never held accountable? Our leadership gets away with everything. Why? It's really, I think it is a moral hazard, because they get to a certain rank and then they think, oh, okay, I'm good to go now. I don't have to be as careful. I don't have to be as self-governed. I don't have to be as moral. And they fall for traps. They fall for the Vanity Fair, the games in the Vanity Fair, easier, because they know that they're not going to be held accountable. So I think that's something that we need to spread around. And, you can write whatever you want in this 1,000 letters for 1,000 days to plead for Michael Horowitz. And it is a pleading. And it shouldn't be. He should do it as a civil servant that he is. He works for us. But we're in this position now because of the corruption that we have to plead for everything. And Yeah, so it is a pleading, and if you can ask him to inspect the investigation of Richard Halliday, we would be very grateful. And you can send as many as you want. So I wanted to show you today was a really big day, and it especially for Senator Cruz. So let me see. Let's put this one up first, and I'll turn this on.
Behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assault.
Hold on. I don't know why my computer does that sometimes. Okay, so let's start this at the very, very beginning.
Behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet. And if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped. This is a crisis. It's a disgrace. And you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
Your refusal to do your job is revolting.
That was pretty powerful. And if you don't know what's going on, let's do this. I think this is
What are these wristbands?
a good explanation.
I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons, because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is astonishing. Mr. Secretary, how many children have been sold into sex slavery under your administration?
Senator, we are taking it to the cartel.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery? Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now, your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped to follow political orders. This is a crisis. It's a disgrace. And you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
Claiming 1 minute chairman time, Mr. Secretary, would you like to respond to any of those questions?
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
Your refusal to do your job is revolting.
That gives you a little bit more insight of what's going on. And then right here, let's listen to this.
What I'm holding in my hand are the wristbands that just about everyone who crosses wears. These wristbands have different colors. They correspond to how many thousands of dollars the illegal immigrants owe the cartels. Each color reflects how much debt they're in. Don't think of these as pieces of plastic. Think of these as leg irons, worn by slaves. So when the kids get here, the teenage boys, the Biden administration will transport to cities all over the country. You might think if you don't live on the border, you're not in a border city. You'd be mistaken. Whatever city you're in, the Biden administration is sending teenagers who owe Mexican drug cartels thousands of dollars. And they have to pay off that money or their families will be killed. And so these illegal immigrants are working for the cartels in cities all across America. And the boys have it a lot better than the girls, because far too many of the teenage girls find themselves trapped in sex slavery instead, to pay off their debt to the cartel. This wristband in particular is chilling because it is obviously the size of a child's hand. I don't know how old the child was that was wearing this wristband, but it hasn't been broken, so her hand or his hand was small enough to slip this off without even breaking it. This chaos the crime, the misery, the abuse. It is inhumane, it's horrific, and it's wrong. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are responsible for the worst plague of slavery in America since the Civil War.
Interesting. And if you, I'm trying to give you a good picture of the politics here. Here you go.
I went to Fort Bliss, the emergency intake center. You guys heard of this? Fort Bliss. To handle all the unaccompanied minors coming to this country. And as I was there, the admiral's running it, and I'm like, sir, why don't we send these kids, these are unaccompanied minors now, back to their home country, back to their town. And the admiral said, well, they don't know where they came from. So these kids are from, I saw one, I know he's probably no more than 5. And I saw some probably, the average was 16, 17-year-olds. So they're saying these kids, these unaccompanied minors, do not know where they came from. I said, well, where are we going to send them to? Oh, we're going to send them to a Google address in the United States of America. Then we don't background check the people we're sending them to. So one of my friends here, I remember earlier, hit on this. We are actually, with taxpayer dollars, are now trafficking children, and we're paying to get them there on American taxpayer dollars and put them in God knows what and God knows where. And so the thing that really, I think Andy Biggs has mentioned this, Rep. Biggs, is, y'all, we've lost 20,000 children.
20,000 children.
Mayorkas said himself in a hearing he does not know where 20,000 of these children are.
Mayorkas says he does not know where these 20,000 children are. Well, this is this man here. This is this man right here.
Behavior is disgraceful,
This is Ted
and the
Cruz,
deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet. And if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped. This is a crisis. It's a disgrace. And you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
That's him. He even admitted that
Your refusal to do your job is revolting.
20,000 unaccompanied minors went to in these United States. That's revolting. That's revolting. So I think Ted Cruz is absolutely right with that. I don't know about all these bracelets and if what Ted Cruz is saying is true. I know that Ted Cruz wrote for us, Find Richard Halliday, a letter that was so amazing and thorough. He had a very good grip on what was going on in this case at the time, and his letter was amazing. We know that he got flipped off by the Secretary of the Army, who is 23 ranks lower than he is, and he didn't get to do anything about it. He didn't, because he's been left defenseless. He also has no recourse when the Secretary of the Army, Christine Wormuth, who is she? Has she fought in wars and all of that? I mean, is she this great elected leader? No, she's appointed, and yet she has more power over a sitting senator. That's wrong, y'all, because she is 23 ranks a subordinate of Ted Cruz, a sitting elected senator, and yet she flipped him off and he had no recourse against her. And so that was a pivotal moment in this case, because we realized what we were up against was a dysfunctional government system, right? A disrespectful government system. They don't respect the Constitution. They don't respect our rule of law. That was very, very clear. And so that's why we're asking for 1,000 letters for 1,000 days, because remember what Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe said. It is, and I corrected it a little bit, but it is the exposing of their failures that drive them to do the right thing. And we need to expose them, and the right thing needs to be done. We need to have accountability. We need to have accountability so that we get better leaders, so that we get the real criminals that are responsible for the child sex trafficking, what Richard was a whistleblower for, the child sex pornography, the child abuse, so that we can get this stopped. I know it's lucrative, everybody. I know it is. And I know when something is that lucrative, then you have people in high places that are interested in participating with this business plan. Well, you know what? Some things are wrong. Some things are just wrong. And there needs to be accountability. And it's destructive. I don't care how much money you can make out off of it. And it's the same thing with turning our barracks into sex cults, turning our whose bright idea was it to make our barracks co-ed when it's 9-1 at the smallest ratio? 9-1, 9 men, 9 22, 23-year-old men to 1 woman. Come on, when you're 23, you're full of vim and vigor. When you're 22, when you're in those early 20s, you're full of vim and vigor. You should never put a bunch of those men together with 1 female. And in the Marines, it's even worse. And they even tell them, I have got it from the mouth. You take a body count or you are raped. What in the world? And our leaders are greenlighting this. And then we're horrified when Vanessa Guillen is a whistleblower for rape or sexual harassment, and then she's bludgeoned to death and then cut up and burnt and put in a grave. Then we're horrified, but we're not looking at the leadership that created this kind of environment, pollution, this polluted environment that causes this kind of crime. And they're not held accountable. Matter of fact, they get bills passed that don't hold them accountable, and they can continue doing this because they don't want their business plan to be interrupted, right? And so when Richard was a whistleblower, he interrupted their business plan a bit. And they knew everything, y'all. And they don't even hold someone like this accountable. This is the most outrageous. When you have a colonel, and there are actual people out there that are so groomed already, that are so hypnotized, that they even think that this colonel has a right to this. He absolutely does not have a right to this. In his uniform, on our installations, in our paid for, on our dime, in our gymnasiums, in our barracks, whatever that is on our dime. Absolutely no way, no how. And the problem that I have with this is this colonel, next rank is general, y'all. He was so bold. He explained that he liked to groom, he liked to rear puppies. This is a national security threat and a disgrace. And they're already making memes. They're already making videos. See, the thing is my family, my dad, when 9/11 hit, he volunteered, right? This is after he came back from Russia, because after Rob got orders to Germany and we left to Germany, my parents decided to go somewhere, do something, serve somehow. And my dad got a job in the American embassy there in Moscow, Russia. And it was still communist at the time. And my mother worked in the adoption section of the American embassy. And my father was like the all in all maintenance man, right? He was so good fixing, doing, he's such a servant. And they went there and they worked their tails off. And they weren't allowed to have a driver. They had a driver. They made friends. My dad always made friends. Everyone that knows my dad knows he always made friends. He loved all people. And of course, they were there when the wall came down, the Iron Curtain. We had victory over the communist Russia, and we even the driver had a son. He came over and stayed with us in the United States for a summer. Got to learn English. Worked for GM. We have friends, and so we know that the narratives are all politically motivated. And we know that there is another story. And so I hope that everyone understands there's another story. And one of the things is we look weak. We look so preoccupied in our own lusts that we don't care about the defense of our country, the defense of our children. We are willing to sacrifice everything for a rearing of a puppy. And this is in our military. It's unacceptable. Get out of the military. Get out. Get out of that uniform. Get out. And I can't even explain how bad this is for our country, how bad this is for the future of our country, for the legitimacy of our country. It's a curse. It's a pollution. It's a crime. And so then we have the border actually, as Senator Cruz is saying, instituting a new type of slavery. Instituting the normalization of children being raped, children being sold in slavery, children being trafficked. And so that's why when Leilani Hart is putting in this report about child trafficking, about child porn, about child abuse, that it goes along with this this grooming, this culture, this green lighting of what's going on in the military. Don't forget, she spent 15 years in the military. So was this all normalized to her? This is not normal. I can't even imagine what she went through if this is true. Now, if this is false and it's been notarized and it went through CID and got a CID number and it went through to FBI and got an FBI number, what happened to her? If these are false allegations of this seriousness given to the CID and the FBI, what's happening to her? Because don't forget, James Hart is telling me he's been cleared. But we have not been informed. We have a missing soldier son, and we have not been informed. It's these phone calls. We have caught them lie after lie after lie after lie. Manipulation after manipulation after manipulation after manipulation. We go to these meetings. They spend way too much time on underage drinking. Who the heck cares about the underage drinking when we have bludgeoned and raped and suicides and missing soldiers? Would you just find him and stop with your nonsense, because you're allowing all kinds of other things to happen? You can't even make a multi-million-dollar be all you can be in the army campaign without your star being a criminal and then having to take down the ad, because the star is also a criminal, a violent one. So there's something wrong, and it's up on top, and it's called the lack of accountability to the highest leaders. And this is where my Christian faith really comes into play. I mean, it always comes into play, and this is another example of where it comes into play. And that is, if you are a father, if you are a minister, if you are a doctor, if you are a teacher, you are, and many others, if you are in a high leadership role, God holds you more accountable than someone of lower stature. People don't understand that. The father in a family is held to a higher level and will be judged harsher than a mother. I don't know if you all know that. A minister the same way. A judge, oh my gosh, judges, they're really held to a very, very high standard. And that's why we're supposed to help them. That's why they get the aids. That's why they get the respect. Because at the end of the day, they will be judged much harsher than anybody else. Now, we need accountability for the prosecutor. We need accountability for our senators. We have, Senator Graham, where is he? Rick Scott, where is he? I mean, Senator Graham really upsets me because he's such a warmonger. And yet we have begged him, pleaded with him to help us with this case, informed him. And he flipped us off like we're a little annoying fly. Same with William Timmons. They're just no good, y'all. And they need to be held accountable. Because they are public servants. This is a big case. And they don't care. They care more about whatever is in their business plan, whatever is going to keep them in office, whatever is going to produce the next war, so they can send they're both, really for sending our volunteer sons and daughters to war. They don't mind that at all. But they don't have our service members' backs at all. I'm going to tell you that right now. Not at all. Because if they don't respond to this case and the oversight of this case, and don't even help with this case, don't even feel like they need to write a letter, don't even feel like they need to call, because remember, the two of them got together and sent this one of their staff members who called them both cowards. Now, that's vile and vulgar in itself. More vile and vulgar than, these paid shills or FBI informants that, or government workers, whatever, that had to, send us vile and vulgar text messages. I don't have to read through them. But when our elected officials betray us and stab us in the back while all along they are rallying to send more of our volunteer sons and daughters, our service members, into harm's way, off to war, and they're not held accountable for not doing their duty, but they expect our service members to do their duty, to obey orders, but they don't defend the Constitution, I think they need to be held accountable. I think it is the worst type of criminal. The worst type of criminal. Along with our 44 four-star generals and admirals. I'm sorry. Silence is consent. And if you only knew what we went through, and they knew it. Major General, well, no, she's a Lieutenant General now. Lieutenant General Donna Martin contacted us the day before we went to January 6, 2021 to tell us not to go. Now, at least she has a little bit of a heart. At least she has a little bit of courage. But what does that tell you? That tells you that she knew. She knew. And she knew. So let's listen to her again.
I agree with Mrs. Halliday that there needs to be an independent outside third party. Together we're going to look into what we need to do in order to involve the FBI.
Congresswoman Veronica Escobar calling for an independent investigation.
So the problem with this is the FBI was already involved because Leilani Hart's complaint was already put in there and had an FBI number at this time. The FBI was already involved. Now, what does that tell you? Either she did not know, which don't tell me she didn't know. And what's the other? And I'm just going to tell you, it's going to come out what these leaders have done. It's going to come out. It's coming out. And we need accountability. And I'm going to tell you right now, Veronica Escobar was up to no good. Absolutely no good. And she did not have Richard's back. She did not have our back. She did not have the interests of the people of El Paso or her district on her mind, on her heart, and the best for them. And when you have 20,000 unaccompanied children unaccounted for at Fort Bliss, that if that's not proof enough, and there's more. And so what Richard was doing was not rubbing shoulders with the slave industry, the child sex trafficking industry, the child porn industry, the child abuse industry. He was not rubbing shoulders. He did not want to participate in the Vanity Fair. He wanted to stay on the road. Yeah. On the good road. So we're asking again.
Investigation into Fort Bliss soldier Richard Halliday's disappearance. He has been missing for more than 2 months. The Congresswoman joined the Halliday family today at a rally where she announced that she would be working to involve the FBI to look at the possibility of foul play.
The FBI were already
involved. As we reported, the soldier's mother, Patricia Halliday, does believe there was foul play in her son's disappearance. She says recently a young woman called her, and that woman telling her she saw another soldier in possession of Richard Halliday's credit.
And that was a false. That was just their narratives. They like to build these narratives, y'all. And the truth of it is there is something very wicked going on. And Richard didn't want to participate in it. And we have established now a motive. And we have a lot of people that need to answer questions. We have a lot of people that need to be held accountable. And the Inspector General could do that. Could inspect that investigation. And so we're asking for this 1,000 letters for 1,000 days. We're also putting together an event. I got some interest today from some media. And so that interview will be coming up. So I don't want to say when. So look for that, because we need we need the 1,000 days not to happen. Okay? So we'll try to prevent that by having 1,000 letters for the 1,000 days, having an event. And I'll let people know more in a couple days, putting it together. And because this is serious. This is children getting raped. This is children getting trafficked. This is families being destroyed. And this is our military saying that it is a security, it's our Department of Defense, and yet Fort Bliss, which should be very, very secure, and the barracks even more secure with our service members, our soldiers in it, and yet Richard goes missing, and they say, we don't know where he went. And 1,000 days go by when they can very easily find anybody in 24 to 48 hours. And we know that horses are involved. We know that this map is involved. It's very interesting. This area traveling, because there's a temple here, we know that many people in this are Mormons, which you would call officially the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There is a temple down here in Colonial Juarez, and there's also a temple right here. And and it's a beautiful spot. Okay, I am not bad mouthing this. This is a absolutely beautiful area. Okay, absolutely beautiful. So this area here, everything you could want is in this area, and you've got the mountains up here to go camping, and you have this beautiful school, and you've got all kinds of beautiful fruit and vegetables and ranching, and I mean, it's beautiful. In this area here, there is a China. I was contacted to get some clarification, and I thank the person very, very much, because she grew up in this area, and she said there's a Chinese community here, and that's why they have the Chinese plaza. Okay, so not only is this the Mormon community, this is also a Chinese community that are in this area here, and it's absolutely beautiful farms and ranches and just, your heart's desire. So, and you have the beautiful Mormon temples down there. And then you have about a 3-hour drive to this area here, which is where Richard's body is reported to the CID, to the FBI. That is also a case file. There's been a a report that Richard's body was dumped right in this area where these orphanages are, where this child shelter is, where this, horse stables are. But 2 orphanages and a child shelter right there where Richard's body is supposed to be dumped. And we know that this has to do with Farnsworth Racing. This has to do with horses. This has to do with a blue truck, the color of this kind of blue that has shaved handles. And we trace that. Very interesting. Because, Albuquerque also has a temple. So there's a temple here, and it's up here. It's in this area here. And so this is where you could fly, or this is even the Santa Teresa port of entry into the United States. And if you go up here, you can get to Albuquerque, and Albuquerque also has a temple, and that is where this truck, this Farnsworth Racing, we've got those leads, are supposed to be in this area, and we're still looking. So if you know where that ranch is, we have the information on the truck. We need the information on the ranch, and that's more difficult. So, but if the inspector general came in and looked at the investigation, because Richard's social security number was interestingly used in Anthony. So why was his social security number used in Anthony on Main Street, 123 Main Street in Anthony, New Mexico? I don't know. That happened in October of 2020. So I don't know if that, I don't know. We need the inspector to come in and investigate. We need the inspector to help us, because we're not a judge. We're not there to say, oh, it's Leilani Hart. Oh, it's Dallas Hart. Oh, no, it's James Hart. Oh, no, it's this group. Oh, no, it's this, we're not to say that, but we'd like to know where they were. Where was Tavita Nusa? I mean, he has some very interesting training. He has some surgical training. His brother is part of the mortuary affairs. They have some real contacts. What's going on? This all needs to be looked at, because we have another member that was mortuary affairs. What did they do with Richard if that is what happened? Because, as a mother, your brain goes a little, wow, please God, no. So we need help. We need someone to look at this investigation and have top secret clearance and have access to all the tools available that we pay for with our taxpayers' money, to help us look for Richard, without our rights being violated, without being put into a dangerous, harm's way, without having to be subjected to vile and vulgar threats, vile and vulgar bullying, even from really at the very, very beginning, even from the first sergeants and the first sergeant's wife. Why? The attitude was alarmingly bad. And my dad was like, where's the esprit de corps? And how do we win any kind of defense or any kind of battle when you have people infighting because of the lusts of people? The will of people is put above the defense of the Constitution. Their feelings have become also important. And so, we were told Richard Halliday is no Vanessa Guillen. And I'm like, how cruel is that? And it's looking like Richard Halliday's case is worse than Vanessa Guillen's. And I hope that's not true. But we're coming up on 1,000 days. And Richard Halliday is Richard Halliday, not Vanessa Guillen. And R.I.P., rest in peace, Vanessa. And for the memory of her, we should be absolutely looking for Richard. Because they wanted to blow her off too. Absolutely say she was AWOL. And it wasn't true, was it? So, this area here, this is where I was born. This area here, let's see if I can find it. There is another racetracks up here. I really need to work on this, but today was absolutely a day to get some things done. And just full of trying to get this going with the 1,000 letters for 1,000 days, and also an event for the 1,000. I hope we never get there. I hope we never have it. But if we do need to have an event. I'm thinking about how we're going to do that. We have a whole team of people brainstorming on how we can do that. And so if you have suggestions, please send me a message. Thank you very much. So I'll take your questions right now. I should turn this off. Okay. Can't believe it's the rape of children. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you, Grace. Civilian jobs wouldn't stand for doggy masks and erections on media. We would be terminated immediately, in my opinion. And yeah, and he's a colonel. And a colonel admitting to horrible things. And it wasn't just that picture. And it wasn't just him. I mean, it was so bold that, it's like normalized and accepted. And so I think that whole thing needs to be investigated, because I think it's much bigger for him to be that bold and that outwardly confident. Wow. Where is the independent investigation outside agency? Absolutely. So she also hosted that rally without an op board. And I will tell you, we're getting information now that in Mexico, Richard doesn't even have a file. So who stopped the file in Mexico? Because we went there repeatedly. Our son Robert went to give DNA for Richard. They are biological brothers, so he came to give DNA. And why isn't that on file? Because they have many, many unidentified dead bodies in their morgue, and Richard's file being in the Mexican system was very, very important, because they could identify the DNA. Now we hear that they don't even have a file for Richard. Now that's absurd. And we're hearing more about that, but I can't say it live. Because remember when we wanted to have a search over there because of our after action report, Rob contacted the point of contact there in Mexico, and he told us that, and we have it on screenshot, that he would do a small search. He agreed to it. The next thing we knew, CID had contacted Rob and said, "Oh, you were hacked. He didn't mean that. There will be no search." So what's going on? Why couldn't the Mexican government, especially with all of this stuff here, there's all these orphanages and child shelters. This should be a very, very safe place, right? Why can't they search that area? That small little area where we had marked off for our after action report, where we had testimony from neighbors in that area. So if there's just, and there's more than just the orphanages there and the child shelter, there's also schools and training centers for children and stuff. It should be a very safe area, right? But no, we have 20,000 unaccompanied children, minors, that we don't know their whereabouts in the United States. And now Senator Ted Cruz is saying they wear wristbands. And why do they come off at the border? I don't understand all that. And I know people get tattooed. You know, that whole tattooed and being tattooed with some kind of chip in you. And I think that was like this whole plan of really pushing tattoos and stuff so that you could be chip tattooed or something like that. Barcoded tattooed. You know, let's just barcode everybody and enslave them that way. I don't know. That was just always a little weird for me and eerie to this huge push for tattoos. And and I'm an artist. I like art. But that was, I don't know, red flags went up. Red flags. And red flags go up all through. There is not one thing about Find Richard Halliday case that's normal. Everything is sloppy. Everything is suspicious. Everything is insulting, is just not done right. It's just not done right. I mean, they went way overboard on the smears of Richard. It was so overboard. It was outrageous. And you're like, if he's that big of a criminal, like you want him to be, which he's not, he's a whistleblower. I mean, 80 subpoenas and warrants, and Jaime Esparza doesn't even contact us and let us know about the judge, and we should know him by first name basis. And Richard comes out super clean. I'm so proud of him. And I'm like, then you'd really want to find him, but no, you send a senior leader to the military police guard mount to try to persuade the military police that he's not even worthy to be found. And he's a U.S. Army soldier that is an investment by every taxpayer. And I think that they need to be held accountable for them throwing out the taxpayer's investment, if you want to get that way, but also a human being, because they're so dehumanized, they don't even consider our soldiers humans. Anyway, well, y'all, I hope that you share. This is how I just want to really push this right here. If you could write some letters so that we can get I guess, momentum and exposure to drive them to do something, because we have it all, y'all. If we have the notary public, if we have the case files for the CID and the FBI, if we have Dallas Hart calling us, which we are very grateful for, but he just didn't answer the questions right because he says he wasn't there. But where is the official letter from the leadership of the